عز وجل ولم يرض له بدون الجنة آمنا به صدق الإمام عليه السلام صلوا على محمد Dear scholars, elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The concept of lamentation, the concept of weeping and crying for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, or generally weeping and crying in the religion of Islam is considered to be makruh. It's considered to be one of the makruhat in the religion of Islam. As in when you refer to the riwayats of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Imam Bakir alayhi salam, they have categorically, explicitly explained within their words that whosoever weeps and laments and shrieks and demonstrates signs of lamentations of an extreme degree, this is considered to be something which is makruh. Effectively, what happens is when a person begins to lament in a way where he begins to pull his hair, or he begins to slap his face, or when he begins to, for example, slap his thighs. And this is sometimes demonstrated when we lose someone close in our families as an expression of grief. The Imam alayhi salam explains that this is makruh. When a person performs these actions, he is moving away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in another narration, in another tradition, he explains explicitly again, he says, except in the case for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that when a person demonstrates these forms of grief for Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, it's no longer considered to be makruh, but the opposite. It's considered to be mustahab. It's considered to be one of the mustahabbat in the religion of Islam. In the sense that you find in history, every generation that has come after Abu Abdullah alayhi salam have demonstrated these signs of lamentation. They have cried, they have lamented, they have beaten their chests, they have beaten their thighs, they have pulled their hair, they have slapped their faces, as a sign, as a demonstration of the aza of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. You look at the scholars, for example, amongst them the Maraja, they would constantly encourage others towards the lamentation and weeping for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. One of the things that the Imams of the Ahl al-Bayt used to endorse and advocate was shedding tears for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. That if a person is not willing to beat his chest, if he's not willing to slap his face, at least the minimum he can do is cry and shed tears for what happened to Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. And this is something that has been encouraged by the ulama even today. That if I give you, for example, the narrative of Ayatollah Marhum Jawad al-Tabrizi, they say this person, this personality, this phenomenal personality he was. Of course, he has passed away. They say that whenever he would go to the majlis of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he would carry with him a black handkerchief. Every time he would be seen in public with this handkerchief. Whenever he would hear the masa'ib of Imam al-Hussein, he would take out this handkerchief and he would wipe his tears. They came to him one day, they said, what is this? He says, we see you carrying this black handkerchief around, we see you wiping your tears, what for? He replies, he says, this black handkerchief contains the tears that I have shed for Imam al-Hussein. And when I die, this will act as my shafa'ah in my grave. To the extent that when he was in his final moments, he turned to his sons. His sons are still today, they're still located in Najaf, you can find them in Najaf. His sons approached him and he said to his sons, he said, when I die, make sure that this black handkerchief is buried with me in my grave. As in, this phenomenal personality believed that this handkerchief would give him shafa'ah. Because remember, there's a hadith of Imam Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. He explains that the power of the tears, when a person weeps and sheds tears for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he says the power of one tear only, if it was to be dropped in the fires of hell, and remember the fires of hell is not compared to the fires of dunya. The fires of hell are far greater than the fires of dunya at many different levels. He says if this one drop of tear that has been shed for Abu Abdullah was to fall within the pits of Jahannam, it has the power to extinguish the heat of the fires of hell. This is the hadith of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. And this is what Sheikh Jawad al-Tabrizi used to believe in. He said that when you bury me with this black handkerchief. They say when he passed away, his sons started looking for that black handkerchief. They couldn't find it. They turned the whole house upside down. They couldn't find it. He had to be buried. So what did they do? They took out the coffins. When they took out the coffins from the closet, They opened the coffins and they found the black handkerchief found within it. They realized and they said to themselves that we understood how serious our father was, that he made sure that in his final days, in his sickness, he made sure that we would not forget to place the black handkerchief in the grave, to the extent that he placed it somewhere where we would not ignore it. When we found it, we buried him in his grave with it. And we find many different scholars have similar stories. The likes of Ayatollah Mar'ashi, for example, his phenomenal library is found today even in Qom. Again, the same story is related to him as well. You find, for example, Kashif al-Ghita. Kashif al-Ghita, they say whenever he would hear the musibah of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he would wipe his tears with his own coffin. And he was then shrouded with that same coffin and he was buried within it. So you find that the ulama of the Ahl al-Bayt, amongst them the leading maraja, used to constantly engage in the act of weeping and shedding tears for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Not only that, but they believed that it was one of the strong mustahabbats within the religion. And it's a very interesting discussion here, because you find that every action that we perform is one of 5 things. It can either be one of 5 things. Our actions can either be makruh, it can either be mustahab, it can either be wajib, it can either be haram, or it can be mubah. It can be one of these 5 things. But you find that there are certain levels within these 5 categories. When you talk about wajibat, for example, we don't have the right to come forward and say that one wajibat is greater than the other. As in, I can't sit on this member and say that salah is better than hajj, or khums is better than hajj, or zakat is better than amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. They are all wajib, yes, they are equal, because the Quran mentions them and the riwayat mention them. Salah is not better than hajj because salah is mentioned far too many times within the Holy Quran, and hajj has a number of verses, for example. This is qiyas, and there is no qiyas within the religion of Islam. But when it comes to mustahabbat, you will find that there are certain actions which are considered to be greater than others. You find, for example, amongst our scholars, the likeness of the one who compiled Jawahir al-Kalam. They say that this scholar, one day he sat down and he began going through all of the ahadith that we have, and he began to list down all of the mustahabbat that are there within our sharia. He comes to a total figure of 250,000 mustahabbat. 250,000 different types of actions which are considered to be mustahab. That's a lot of mustahabbat. And you find that amongst these mustahabbat, there are those which are considered to be greater than others. There are those which are considered to be far better than others in terms of rewards. The likeness of Salat al-Layl. Salat al-Layl is one of the strong, higher mustahabbats that we have within our sharia. That a person who engages in Salat al-Layl, Allah, the rewards that he attains is great. The likeness of Ghusl al-Jum'ah. Ghusl al-Jum'ah is one of the higher tiers of mustahabbat. It's recommended, it's advocated within our sharia. And of course, the likeness of weeping for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So when you come to this understanding that weeping for Imam Hussein alayhi salam is one of the higher tiers of the mustahabbat within our sharia, a question was naturally asked. What evidences are there to show that the weeping for Imam Hussein alayhi salam is considered to be one of the best mustahabbat that we have within our sharia? You found different scholars from different fields gave different answers. You had the answers of the fuqaha, you had the answers of the theologians, and you had the answers of the historians. And each of these groups of scholars embarked on answering the question as to why weeping for Imam Hussein alayhi salam is considered to be one of the greatest mustahabbat within our sharia. Let's look at these 3 answers individually. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When the fuqaha were asked, what evidences do we have to show that weeping for Imam Hussein alayhi salam is considered to be one of the higher stages of mustahabbat, they came and they said that there are certain hints that we should look out for. A faqih, when he comes to the derivation of law, he looks out for certain hints. He reads the riwayats. He opens the books of the riwayats, the ahadith, and he begins to read them one by one. He said, if you want to understand which ibadah is stronger and greater than another, then there are 2 things you should look out for. 2 hints that you should look out for. Number one is what is known as repetition, and the second which is known as substitution. If you can find both repetition and substitution within a particular narration, then understand that this narration is greater than all the other, that this particular ibadah is greater than all the other ibadat. What's repetition? Repetition means that when the Imam alayhi salam repeats a particular concept over and over and over again. In our communities, in our societies, repetition can either mean one of two things. It can either mean that the person is repeating because he has no knowledge, as in if I sit on the member of Rasul and I repeat myself over and over again, you would easily tell that I have no knowledge and that's why I'm repeating myself. But the other aspect of repetition is when I am trying to emphasize a particular point. And this is something that is normal within our societies. You go to the universities, the professors may perhaps repeat a particular concept. When you go to school, when you're studying maths or science or whatever it is, your teacher may repeat a particular concept. Not because they have no knowledge, but because they want to emphasize and re-emphasize a particular concept, a notion that you should pay heed towards. You find that when you come across many narrations which are repetitive, it's not because the A'immah have no knowledge, it's because they want to emphasize a particular point, so that we pay heed towards it. When you come towards, for example, the life of Rasulullah, in his life, in his seerah, how many times in front of the public, in front of his Sahaba, he came forward and he began to praise Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. He would say, for example, Ana Madinatul Ilm wa Aliyun Babuha. He didn't say this once in his life, he said it repeatedly over and over again. In many different circumstances, he used to repeat this. For example, he says, Inni tarikum fikum thaqalain. He didn't say this once or twice. He said this repetitively throughout his entire life, from the time of his bi'thah until his final moments. He would repeat it over and over again. Or for example, when he came to his companions, he said that the greatest and the most knowledgeable person amongst you is Ali ibn Abi Talib. You ask the question, why did the Prophet repeat this over and over again? It's because he wanted to convey the message that there is no person like Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. You look towards the riwayat, for example, we have thousands of riwayats that speaks about what the dhuhur of Imam al-Hujjah. You ask the question, why did the Imam speak so much about Imam al-Hujjah alayhi salam? Because there is a lot of information, because it's something that we need to pay heed towards. That's why the ulama came forward and they've written, until today they have written voluminous works examining every dimension of the life of Imam al-Hujjah, from the time he went into Ghaibah, to Ghaibat al-Kubra, to the Nawa'ib that he left behind, to his relationship with the ulama today, to what will happen, for example, when he comes back, to the prophecies, the signs of the last day. Everything has been discussed amongst the ulama because they pay heed towards it. Why? Because there are a number of riwayat surrounding it. Likewise, when you come towards the concept of crying and weeping for Abu Abdullah, there's not just one or two hadith that we have within our books. There are hundreds of ahadith that we have within our books. You ask the question, why did the Imams of the Ahl al-Bayt repeat themselves over and over again, cry and shed tears for Abu Abdullah? It's because they wanted to tell us that crying and weeping has a significant position within our Sharia. It's something that we should pay heed towards. They advocated it to the highest degree. This is the concept of what? Repetition. Then there was the concept of substitution. The fuqaha further explained, they said that if you want to examine if a particular ibadah is greater than another, look for any alternatives for that particular ibadah. If there is a substitution for it, then understand that that ibadah is of great importance. What is the meaning of this? I'll give you an example. You know, sometimes when the speaker talks about the fuqaha and he gives fiqh examples, people switch off because fiqh is a very boring subject, no doubt. But it's this particular concept, this particular discussion is very interesting. The ulama, the fuqaha said, if you can find a substitution for a particular action, then understand that that action has high importance. The example of tahara. Before we stand for salah, we need to be tahir, we need to be pak, we need to be pure. I cannot recite salah without being pure. How do I purify myself? Through wudu or through ghusl. What happens? How do I perform wudu? Through water. How do I perform ghusl? Through water. What happens in the case when there is no water available? When there is no water available, does that mean that the whole concept of tahara is no longer my responsibility? It's dropped from my responsibility? When there is no water available, does that mean that I can stand on the musalla and pray salah without tahara? The Quran comes forward and says if there is no water available, what should one do? he should perform tayammum. Tayammum is a substitution when water is not available. Allah doesn't say that, okay, because water is not available, then the whole concept of tahara is dropped, you are no longer responsible for it, pray as you are. He says, no, go find sand, go find dust, purify yourself in other ways, and then stand for salah. So the fuqaha came forward and they said that the reason that tayammum is a substitution for tahara of water, it shows that tahara in itself is of great importance. I'll give you another example, the act of salah. One of the conditions of salah is that I should stand and face the qibla and pray. What happens in the case when I cannot stand? I'm sick, I don't have the power to stand, I don't have the ability to stand. Does Allah say no longer the wajibat of salah is no longer on your shoulders? You are now forgiven, you are now what? Exempted from praying salah? He says no. If you cannot stand to pray, then what should one do? He should stand and lean on something and then pray. If you cannot stand leaning on something, then sit and pray. If you cannot sit and pray, sit, lean on something and then pray. If you cannot sit leaning on something, then lie on your right side and pray. If you cannot lie on your right side, lie on your left side. If you cannot lie on your left side, lie on your back and pray. Because all of these alternatives have been put in place, because all of these substitutions have been put in place, it tells us that salah is one of the greatest acts of ibadah. Under no circumstances is the mukallaf exempted from escaping from salah. That's how important it is. Likewise, when it comes to weeping for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, what do the fuqaha say? They say there is a substitution for weeping for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. One day a companion comes towards Imam alayhi salam, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, he says, Ya Imam, he says, Ya ibn Rasulillah, you go on talking about how I should weep and show lamentations and weep for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He says, I cannot weep for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The tears do not come from my eyes. What should I do? The Imam says, if you cannot weep, then pretend to weep. That if the tears do not flow from one's eyes, then pretend to weep. This is a substitution that is put in place. That the Imam alayhi salam says that the one who pretends to weep, Allah will reward him just as if he is weeping. So this was the opinion of the fuqaha. They came forward and they said that because there is repetition surrounding weeping for Imam al-Hussein, it's an act of great importance. And likewise, because there is a substitution in place, this is an act of great importance. This was the opinion of the fuqaha. Then the opinions of the theologians. What did the theologians come forward and say? The theologians came forward and they said that if you want to understand the importance of a particular action, look out for its rewards. Examine the rewards that are associated with that particular action. As in sometimes, when we want to motivate ourselves in performing ibadah, what do? We start Googling what the effects of that particular ibadah, yes? When we want to motivate ourselves reciting Salat al-Layl, we open Allama Majlis's book when he talks about all of the benefits of Salat al-Layl. When we want to, for example, recite Quran, we open up Ayn al-Hayat and we read what Allama Majlisi says about the benefits of recitation of the Holy Quran. It's a powerful tool to motivate ourselves in moving towards Allah and performing ibadah. Likewise, there are rewards associating when a person weeps for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The minimum reward that a person receives when he weeps and sheds tears for Imam Hussein alayhi salam is that his entire sins are forgiven. The Imam alayhi salam comes forward and he says that whosoever sheds tears for Imam Abi Abdullah alayhi salam, Allah will forgive his sins. This is the riwayah. Which riwayah? The riwayah that we mentioned yesterday, Rayyan ibn Shabib. He says, Ya ibn Shabib, cry for Imam Hussein. When the tears fall on your cheeks, understand that Allah will forgive all of your sins, regardless whether they are big sins or small sins. Whether they are plenty or whether they are small in quantity, it doesn't matter. Allah will erase your book of deeds. This is the minimum reward that a person attains. Then the riwayat go on even further. The riwayat says that whosoever weeps for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, they will be raised on the day of judgment. On the day of judgment, every single human being will be raised, and they will be raised with a blackened face. They will be in the state of fear. They will be in the state of distress, in the state of grief and sorrow. except for the one who cries for Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. He will be resurrected on the day of judgment with light emanating from his face, and he will have a smile in his face, and he will be in the state of jubilation. The riwayat goes on even further. The Imam alayhi salam says that whosoever weeps for Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the day of judgment, Allah will make the fires of hell haram for him. Those tears will act as a barrier and a protection against the fires of hell. The riwayah goes on even further. The Imam alayhi salam says, whosoever weeps for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, no, not only will he be resurrected on the day of judgment in the state of jubilation, he will be resurrected alongside the Ahlul Bayt. There's a difference. There's a difference being resurrected happy, but there's a difference being resurrected alongside the company of the Ahlul Bayt. You are being raised alongside the higher echelons of reality, yes? Then the Imam goes on even further. He says that no, not only will he be resurrected alongside the presence of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, but this person will be given Jannah as reward. And he will be made to enter Jannah, and he will be made to live in Jannah permanently. The riwayah goes on even further than this. The riwayah says, no, not only will he enter Jannah, he will be given the opportunity to raise his ranks within Jannah. So this person, not only will he live permanently in Jannah, he will have the opportunity to ascend to the higher levels of Jannah. But there is one particular narration that stands out to be exceptionally profound. The Imam alayhi salam, Imam al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, explains, he says that whosoever weeps for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and the tear comes from his eyes, and the size of the tear is the size of a wing of a fly, Allah Azza wa Jal will forgive all his sins, even if his sins equal to the amount of the drops of the oceans and the seas. Allah will extinguish his sins completely. If the tear is the size of a wing of a fly, what is the size of a wing of a fly? It will extinguish the sins the size of the oceans and the seas. That's a profound narration. What happened was, some people, when they began to read narrations like these, they came forward and they put a massive question mark on the reliability of this hadith. They said this hadith cannot be true. They said this hadith has to be fabricated. It's an exaggeration. They asked the question why. They said the reason is because it brings about the concept of ighra. What's the concept of ighra? Temptations. It tempts me to perform more sins in dunya. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Ahlul Bayt have given me the keys of Jannah, they have given me the secrets of Jannah, all I have to do, for example, is cry, shed one or two tears for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and I'll be entering Jannah. It's as easy as that, isn't it? I can go and I can commit as much sins as possible. Whether they are great sins or less sins, it doesn't matter. I can defy the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But all I have to do in terms of redemption is shed one or two tears for Imam Hussein alayhi salam with sincerity, and that's it. I'll enter the gates of Jannah. This goes against the entire principles of the religion of Islam. This was the justification. They said this goes against the entire principles of the religion of Islam. And the reason is because Islam is a religion that encourages us to establish discipline in our lives, to establish taqwa. How many verses are there in the Holy Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises the muttaqi, the one who has iman? What's taqwa? Every day, every Friday we go towards what? Namaz al-Jum'ah, Salatul Jum'ah. The Imam of Jum'ah, what does he say? He says, Usikum wa nafsi bi taqwallah. That I encourage you and I encourage myself to adhere to taqwa. What's taqwa? Taqwa is when a person spiritually disciplines himself. He stays away from committing sins and he adheres to the wajibat. And I say this to you, dear brothers and sisters, this takes a lifetime to perfect. It takes a lifetime to perfect taqwa. It's when a person stays away from sins and he adheres to the wajibat. This is what Islam teaches us. But when I read a riwayah like this, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Imams explains that shed tears for Imam Hussein alayhi salam and you'll be granted Jannah. No, you'll not just be granted Jannah, you'll be granted the higher levels of Jannah. It means that there's no need for me to achieve taqwa in my life. All I have to do is sin. Come Muharram, shed one or two tears, and that's it. I'm granted Jannah. Therefore, they came to the conclusion saying that this hadith is not reliable. Our ulama stood forward and they said, no, that's not true. This form of mentality, this state of thinking is not something correct. Because the mabna, because the principles behind this particular hadith is there within the Holy Quran as well. There is a verse in the Holy Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that whosoever refrains and abstains from committing greater sins, Allah will forgive his smaller sins. What's a greater sin? Zina is a greater sin. Adultery, fornication, lying, stealing, yes, conning someone in business and transaction, being disrespectful to one's parents, yes. For example, cutting off one's relationship with their womb relatives. These are all considered to be greater sins. If I abstain from all of these types of sins, Allah will forgive all of my small sins. But do you find anyone coming forward and saying that go and perform as much small sins as you want, because as long as you abstain from the greater sins, Allah will forgive your small sins? Because this is what their justification is. They say that if it is easy for me to enter Jannah by shedding tears for Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, I can live a life of sin. And all I have to do is shed a tear or two for Imam Hussein alayhi salam and everything is wiped away. But the same principle is found within the Holy Quran. Why is it that we have objections towards the narrations of the Ahl al-Bayt, but we have no objections towards the verses of the Holy Quran? No one raises an eyebrow when it comes to the verses of the Holy Quran, but when it comes to the narrations of the Ahl al-Bayt, we have 10,000 questions questioning them. So therefore, the ulama came forward and said that the principle behind this hadith, that whosoever sheds a tear the size of a wing of a fly, Allah will forgive all of his sins, is something sahih, and it's there within, the principle of it is there within the Holy Quran. But there is a difference to it. There is a condition that is placed alongside it, because it's not as easy as just shedding tears and sinning at the same time. The example they give is the example of Hajj. When a person goes for Hajj, and he goes through the trials and the tribulations of Hajj, the standing in Arafah, the standing in Muzdalifah, the standing in Mina, for example, the amount of ibadah that is involved, yes. When this person goes for Hajj, the riwayah says that Allah wipes away all of their sins to the extent that it is as if they have been reborn in the dunya. It's as if their position is as if it's as like an infant. An infant, when it comes into dunya, it has no records of deeds, it has no sins. A person who finishes his Hajj is just like an infant. Yes, there are no sins in his books of deeds. But when he comes back home and he goes back to his old ways, he opens the gates of sin for himself and he goes back into his old habits. For example, you say to this person, what benefited you in Hajj? How did Hajj benefit you in dunya? How did it change your personality? How did it change your behavior? If it had no change in your behavior, then know that Hajj did not have an effect in you in your life. Likewise, when it comes to weeping for Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, if I was to attend these majalis al-Husayniyah and then cry and shed tears, yes, and then I leave the center and I go back to my old ways, then understand that these tears had no effect in my life. If entering heaven is as easy as weeping and crying for Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam, it's not that easy. Because remember, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the plains of Karbala, when he held Ali Asghar, and he came towards the army and he said to them, give this child some water. You think they were there mocking Imam Hussein alayhi salam, laughing at him? These companions of Umar ibn Sa'd were crying. The tears were flowing from their eyes when they saw the signs of dryness in the face of Ali al-Asghar. They were crying and they were weeping. Umar ibn Sa'd felt threatened by this. The companions, when they cried, you think Allah will forgive all of their sins because they cried for Abu Abdullah alayhi salam? By God, no. Crying has different levels of reality. Ask yourself these questions. Why do I cry for Abu Abdullah alayhi salam? You know, sometimes our youths come forward with interesting questions. They ask the question, why should I cry for Imam Hussein alayhi salam? Imam Hussein, yes, he was brutally killed, but he was a shaheed and he went straight to heaven. Yes, he went straight to Jannah. Why should I cry for him? We shouldn't cry for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam because of the way he was killed. Yes, emotions has a part in this. We cry of how Sukaina was treated. We cry how Bibi Zainab was treated. We cry how Ali al-Asghar was killed. This emotions has a heavy part in this whole tragedy. But then I have to go towards the higher levels of weeping and lamentation. It shouldn't just stop there on an emotional level. It should transcend beyond the emotional. I should now put it in practice. Whenever I shed tears, I should ask myself. I say, what sins am I committing in this day and age? What sins are holding me back from becoming a spiritual person? That if I was to stand in Karbala on the 10th of Muharram, on the day of Ashura, which camp should I be standing on? Or which camp would I be standing on? Would I be standing alongside Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam? My lips and my tongue constantly, what do we say? Ya laytana kunna ma'akum. We wish we were there with you. Ya Allah, why did you make us come into dunya 440 years later? 1440 years later. I wish I was there alongside Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But what does our heart say? What do our actions say? When we go into the grave, it's not our tongue that will answer munkar and nakir. It's our actions that will answer munkar and nakir. What do our actions say? If I am a sinful person, I'm not going to be standing alongside Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I'm going to be standing alongside whom? Umar ibn Sa'd and Ibn Ziyad and Yazid ibn Muawiyah. Let our actions speak, because actions are louder than words. When I weep for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, there is an emotional process taking place. When I cry for Sukaina, when I cry for Ruqayya, when I cry for Zainab, yes, I have an emotional attachment to them. At the same time, I have an emotional detachment towards Yazid ibn Muawiyah. When I cry for Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam, I am associated to his party. That means that I am dissociating myself from Yazid ibn Muawiyah. When I cry, I should ask Allah to forgive my sins, and I should commit myself of not going back to committing those sins. This is the philosophy of crying for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And this was the opinions of the theologians. They said, look at the rewards for tears for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and progress from that perspective. Try and commit ourselves. We should try and commit ourselves in changing our lifestyles from tonight, because these nights are the nights of change. Then you had the opinions of the historians. The historians came forward and explained that weeping for Imam Hussein alayhi salam is considered to be one of the higher levels of mustahabbat. Why? Because this was a sunnah of Rasulullah. No, it wasn't the sunnah of Rasulullah. It was the sunnah of every single prophet that laid foot in this world. Every prophet, every divine messenger that has come into this world have cried for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Our riwayat explain that Adam alayhi salam wept for Imam Hussein. Noah wept for Imam Hussein. Ibrahim wept for Imam Hussein. Musa, Isa, Yaqub, Yusuf, Yunus, every single one of them wept for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Some people may come and ask the question, how is that even possible? How can you cry for a tragedy that has not taken place? These individuals were connected with the higher realms of reality, alim al-malakut. The realities were uncovered for them. Jibreel used to descend and say to them, Ya Nabi Allah, this is what will happen to the grandson of Rasulullah. And they all wept. People ask the question, how can they weep? How can you weep for a tragedy that has not taken place? Look at the example of Rasulullah. We have narrations, ample narrations provided within our books and the books of our brothers, the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. May Allah bless them. What do these narrations explain? These narrations explain how Rasulullah used to cry for Imam Hussein before even Imam Hussein was born. You find, for example, on the day when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was born, Fadl narrates this. Fadl was home, the wife of Abbas, the uncle of Rasulullah. One day she came towards the Holy Prophet of Islam. She came towards him and she was weeping, she was wailing. She was in the state of utter grief. She came towards Rasulullah. She said, Ya Rasulullah, I've seen a dream. Rasulullah is worried. He says, Ya Fadl, I've never seen you like this. What makes you weep in such a way? She says, I saw a dream. He says, what was the dream? She says, in my dream I saw you and a piece of you was cut off and that piece fell on my lap. Rasulullah smiles. He says, Ya Fadl, this is a good dream. It's good news. He says, what do you mean? He says, it means that my daughter Fatima will have a son by the name of Hussein. This is good news. Fadl smiles. She's happy now. This is good news. And she goes away. They say when Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was born, Fatima al-Zahra came with the infant, she gave it to Fadl. Fadl held the infant in her arms. Then she remembered her dream and she said, now my dream has come into reality. Yes, that the piece of Rasulullah, that a part of Rasulullah has come into her laps, which means that Imam Hussein alayhi salam is now in her laps. She was happy. She then gave the infant to Rasulullah. When she gave the infant to Rasulullah, the Prophet began to recite the adhan and the iqamah. Then he begins to look at the face of Imam al-Hussein. Then the tears begin to flow from his eyes. They came towards the Holy Prophet. They said, why do you cry? The angels have descended from the heavens congratulating you. They've come into this house in the state of jubilation, congratulating you over the birth of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And you cry, Ya Rasulullah. Why do you cry? He says, because Jibreel has just descended and has told me that my ummah satuqtalu ibni hadha. That my ummah will be the cause of the death of this child. They will slaughter him in the lands known as Karb wa Bala. This is one narration. Then you have another narration. What's the other narration? The other narration is the narration of Salama, the wife of Rasulullah. He comes home one day. He says to Salama, Salama, I'm going to my room. Make sure no one disturbs me. Rasulullah needed some privacy. He goes into the room and he stays there. Salama made sure that no one was to enter the room, and then she went to go do some work. She comes back. All of a sudden she hears Rasulullah crying. She enters the room. Remember, no one was meant to come into the room. She enters the room to see why Rasulullah is crying. What does she see? She sees Rasulullah sitting on the floor, wailing, lamenting, crying. The tears are flowing from his eyes. His beard is drenched with his own tears. Imam al-Hussein is sitting in his lap. He's now caressing the head of Imam al-Hussein. He's wiping his hair. Yes? The Salama, she says, Ya Rasulullah, I did not acknowledge how Imam Hussein alayhi salam came into the room. I apologize. Let me take him out. Rasulullah replies, he says, Ya Salama, do you know what just happened? She says, no. He says, Jibreel has just descended and has given me the news that this son of mine will be slaughtered by my own people. Jibreel said to me, Ya Rasulullah, do you love this child of yours? He says, yes, I love him. He says, one day your people will kill him and they will slaughter him in the lands known as Karb wa Bala. Rasulullah was weeping. Had Karbala taken place? No, this happened years before Karbala, decades before Karbala took place. Another example, the example of what? The example of when Rasulullah was with his companions. It's a beautiful narration. This is Khawarizmi, one of the scholars of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, mentions this in his book. He says that when Rasulullah was amongst his companions, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein came towards him. They were young kids, toddlers. They came towards the Rasul. Rasulullah, when he saw the face of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, all of a sudden he began to cry. Tears just began flowing abruptly. The companions are worried. They say, Ya Rasulullah, why do you cry? He says, because Jibreel has just descended and he has reminded me of how my son will be killed by my own people. They say Rasulullah went towards, he rushed, he hastened towards Masjid al-Nabawi. He entered the masjid, he entered the mimbar. وَكَانَ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ al-Hasanayn. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was on one side, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was on the other side, and he began weeping. Then he began delivering a sermon. Then he said to his people, he said, O people, understand that my son Hussein shall be slain by my ummah. Then what does he do? He then takes the hand of Rasulullah. Rasulullah takes his right hand, he places it on the head of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Then he lifts his head and he stares towards the heaven. He observes the skies. And then he says, Allahumma bihaqqi nabiyyik Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. He says, by the haqq of your Prophet Muhammad, give my la'na on those who slaughter my son, my grandson on the plains of Karbala, and bless those who stood alongside him. They say, the narration says, فَدَجَّ النَّاسَ بِالْبُكَاءِ, that the people began to wail and began to weep. The narration doesn't say that one or two tears flowed from their eyes. For that Jannasa bil Buka, they began to wail. The whole of Masjid al-Nabawi was packed with the Sahaba. And they were weeping and what? Wailing for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And this happened years before even Karbala takes place. That's why when you go into history as well, you find Fatima al-Zahra wept for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam also wept for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. This was the sunnah of the divine messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ayyuha al-mu'minun, cry and shed tears for Imam al-Hussein. This is one of the greatest of mustahabbat that is there entrenched within our sharia. They say that Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he was on his way towards Safin, when he passed a place called Nainawa, when he passed a place called Nainawa, he turned to Ibn Abbas, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he begins to cry. By the way, he begins to cry. Ibn Abbas says, I have never seen Amir al-Mu'mineen, yes, the lion of Allah, crying the way he was crying. He says, Ya Ibn Abbas, do you know what land this is? Ibn Abbas says, no, I don't know what land this is. He says, Ya Ibn Abbas, if you were to know what land this is, if you had the knowledge that I have, you would not pass from these lands except in the state of tears and lamentation. So you find that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam used to cry for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And that's why they say that when Imam Hussein alayhi salam enters a land, all of a sudden his horse stops. His horse does not proceed. The Imam alayhi salam tries to nudge the horse to carry on, but the horse doesn't move. The horse doesn't take a single step. It doesn't move towards the right, it doesn't move towards the left. The horse is now at a halt. Yes, the Imam looks around, Abu Abdullah alayhi salam looks around and he sees all the other horse moving forward, proceeding. But his horse would not proceed. So he says, Ya Ashabi, he says, oh my men, what land is this? They say, Ya Abu Abdullah ibn Rasulullah, this is known as the lands of Al-Ghadiriyya. The Imam alayhi salam says, no, is there another name for this land? They say, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, yes, there is another name for this land. This land is known as An-Nainawa. He says, no, there is another name for this land. What is the other name for this land? They say, Ibn Rasulullah, this land is known as Karbala. This land is known as Karbala. The Imam alayhi salam then says, this is the lands that we must stop. This is the land that we have been destined to be killed. He says, oh my companions, this is the land when our blood will be shed. This is the lands when the blood of our infants and our children will be shed. These are the lands that when our followers will come and visit us. Ya ayyuhal mu'minun, understand that on the 10th of the day, on the 10th day of Muharram, Fatima al-Zahra was there and she witnessed every massacre that took place in Karbala. When Da'bal enters the presence of Imam al-Rida, Imam al-Rida says, Ya Da'bal, recite lines of poetry for us. Da'bal begins to recite lines of poetry. He says, Fatimu law khilti al-Husayna mujaddala وقد مات تشانا بشت فرات. He says, oh Fatima, if you knew how your son was massacred and slaughtered in the lands of Karbala, how he was slain thirsty alongside the river Furat, إذا لتمت خد فاطمة عنده أجريتي دمع العين بالوجنات. He says, oh Fatima, if you knew how your son was slaughtered in the lands of Karbala, you would slap your face, you would pain yourself, you would slap your cheeks in lamentation, in sorrow, in grief, and the tears would flow from your eyes. They say that Fatima alayhi salam witnessed every massacre that took place in Karbala, but the greatest musibah is the musibah of Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam. For 30 to 40 years he survived Karbala and not a single day passed except in tears for his father Abi Abdullah, to the extent that when his servants brought him food and water, he would cry and shed tears for Abu Abdullah. They say that one day his servant came came towards him. Imam al-Sajjad was in the state of sujood. When he was in the state of sujood, he would cry and lament and cry in grief and sorrow. When he lifted his head from sujood, the servant saw that the beard of Imam al-Sajjad was drenched in his tears. He said, Ya Imam, enough is enough. How long will you cry for your father? Your father was slaughtered years ago, decades ago, and you still cry as if it happened yesterday. The Imam alayhi salam replies, he says, do you not know that when Yusuf was taken away from Yaqub, Yaqub cried and cried and cried, and he lamented, his hair went white, his back had become bent, and he knew his eyes became blind, his eyes had whitened and he became blind, and yet he knew that his son was alive. He knew that his son Yusuf was alive. He says, when I was there in Karbala, I saw the slaughter of 70 members of my family. Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam witnessed the slaughter of his father, Abu Abdullah. He witnessed the slaughter of his uncles Abbas and Abdullah and Jaffer. He witnessed the slaughters of Ali al-Asr and Ali al-Akbar. That's why they say when the women were taken as prisoners, I end with this narrative, they say that when the ladies were chained and they were dragged from Karbala to Kufa and from Kufa to Sham, they say Sukaina, she would not be able to cry whenever she would cry and mourn for the loss of her father, because remember, she would see the sights of the head of her father plastered on the planks of the spears. Whenever she would cry and shed tears for Abu Abdullah, Shima would come and whip her. They say that Shima would whip her on her back. They say that the back of this beloved girl of Imam al-Hussein was moved by the whips of Shima ibn al-Jawshan. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Saya'lamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. We end with this dua inshallah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Amma yujibu al-muttarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibu al-muttarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد
يا حسين 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 Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. The poet pens this as if the words of Sayyid al-Shuhada would be that, why do you kill me? Am I not the grandson of your beloved Prophet? Mera nana nabi, meri maa sayyada, mera baba Ali, मेरा भाई हसन हम ही है पंजतन हम ही है पंजतन मेरी क्या है खता मेरी क्या है खता मेरी क्या है खता मेरी क्या है खता मुझ पे क्यों बंद करते हो पानी क्या मोहम्मद का प्यारा नहीं हूँ मुझ पे क्यों बंद करते हो पानी क्या मोहम्मद का प्यारा नहीं हूँ मुझ पे क्यों बंद करते हो पानी क्या मोहम्मद का प्यारा نہیں ہوں، مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں ہوں؟ کیا میں زہرا کا جایا نہیں ہوں، کیا میں زہرا کا جایا نہیں ہوں، کیا میں زہرا کا جایا نہیں ہوں، کیا نبی کا نواسا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد کا نہیں ہوں؟ میرے نانا نے کلمہ سکھایا اور قرآن تم کو سنایا، میرے نانا نے کلمہ سکھایا اور قرآن تم کو سنایا، کیا میں نانا کا سایہ نہیں ہوں، کیا میں نانا کا سایہ نہیں ہوں، کیا نبی کا نواسا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد کا پیارا؟ وہ مدینہ جہاں میرا گھر ہے اور مسجد میں اس گھر کا در ہے، وہ مدینہ جہاں میرا گھر ہے اور مسجد میں اس گھر کا در ہے، کیا میں اس گھر میں کھیلا نہیں ہوں، کیا میں اس گھر میں کھیلا نہیں ہوں، کیا میں اس گھر میں کھیلا نہیں ہوں، کیا نبی کا نواسا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد نہیں ہوں؟ چکیاں پیس کر نے پالا، مجھ کو نانا نے جھولا جھولایا، چکیاں پیس کر ماں نے پالا، مجھ کو نانا نے جھولا جھولایا، اپنا بچپن میں بھولا نہیں ہوں، اپنا بچپن میں بھولا نہیں ہوں، اپنا بچپن میں بھولا نہیں ہوں، کیا نبی کا نواسا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد نہیں ہوں؟ کملی والے کے لب چومتا تھا، کتنا پیارا میرا بچپنا تھا، کملی والے کے لب چومتا تھا، کتنا پیارا میرا بچپنا تھا، کیا میں ان کا دلارا نہیں ہوں، کیا میں ان کا دلارا نہیں ہوں، کیا میں ان کا دلارا نہیں ہوں، کیا نبی کا نواسا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد کا نہیں ہوں؟ میں جو پانی کبھی مانگتا تھا، کیوں تڑپتی تھی ماں میں سمجھا، میں جو پانی کبھی مانگتا تھا، کیوں تڑپتی تھی ماں میں سمجھا، پاس اصغر کے جاتا نہیں ہوں، پاس اصغر کے جاتا نہیں ہوں، پاس اصغر کے جاتا نہیں ہوں، کیا نبی کا نواسا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں ہوں؟ مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی، کیا محمد کا پیارا मैं जो चाहूं बरस जाए बादल, खून में डूबा नजर आए मक़तल। मैं जो चाहूं बरस जाए बादल, खून में डूबा नजर आए मक़तल। जंग करने में आया नहीं हूँ, जंग करने में आया नहीं हूँ, जंग करने में आया नहीं हूँ। क्या नबी का नवासा नहीं हूँ, मुझ पे क्यों बंद करते हो पानी, क्या मोहम्मद का प्यारा नहीं हूँ, मुझ पे क्यों बंद करते हो पानी, क्या मोहम्मद प्यारा नहीं। मैं the Imam of our time. या इमाम ज़माना, या इमाम ज़माना, या इमाम ज़माना, या इमाम माना, या इमाम ज़माना, या कायम अल-अजल, या कायम अल-अजल, या कायम, या कायम, या कायम, या कायम, या कायम। सल्लु अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद। मुतवज्जिह ज़ियारा।
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرذية وجلت وعزمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعزمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات، فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مكامكم وأذالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله ممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن عشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجانة، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله الشمرة، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وعلجمت وتنقبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد أظم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مكامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك والجور عليكم، وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانه وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشيائكم، برئت الله وإليكم منهم، وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم، وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناسبين لكم الحرب، وبالبراءة من عشيائهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم، وحرب لمن حاربكم، وولي لمن والاكم، وعدو لمن عاداكم. فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي إنكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاركم مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يؤتيني بمثابي بكم أفضل ما يؤتي مساب بمصيبتي، مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رذيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقام هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن أكلة الأكبد اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك. اللهم لعن أبو سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فذائف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب العليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقف هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تاب له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايت وبايت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم اللعن مني وابدأ به أول ثم الآن الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسا ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمر وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجود. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مسابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رضيته. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود، وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا محجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. اللهم صل على محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد.
Brothers and sisters, just reminder that we have the envelopes available over here for the general donations and the membership forms. The other reminder is about the Islamic calendar that is available to purchase for $5 inshallah each, so they can be purchased now. And for the young brothers and sisters, once you have completed your notes, please on the brother side give it to brother Ahmed Gohari, and on the lady side please pass it on to sister Arifa. Inshallah tomorrow you can take it again once you come to the center. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
I could volunteer for the class. Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. Let me pass your name. Okay. Would you like some?
I'm going for the first 10 days, yeah, I'm not sure. During the week, I'll obviously try to stay for a look, but yeah, get back and forth. करूँगा जैसे बात है next week में ज़्यादा होगा, इस week में इतना नहीं, लेकिन इस week का भी अभी बिल्कुल आप कोई बात है जहाँ भी बंदा अटेंड कर सकता है।
تسيب بسم الله تقول I've had enough. I've had enough. Why are these guys eating chicken nuggets?
I discipline. There's a big difference. Then educate. I'm disciplined. That's my job, man. That's my part-time.
Where you found the plug?
You going to Majestic next year? I mean, this year?
Next year, yeah, next year, definitely.
This year?
I don't know.
It's,
Yeah, I am.
at Eastwood, 10:30 to 12:15.
Where do you guys pray?
In gym.
You guys know the guy shouted out? I know. Look, come on, give me a shout out. No, we'll love you, bro. We'll love you. Come on, man. What did he say? This is very... Coffee pieces. Bro, 6 buzz replied to me and this other guy. So jokes, he made world star. 6 star?
They have a rule when you go to
What's with you and all grades?
so if you they give you,
Yo, are you allowed to wear your watch? Are you allowed to wear your watch on school?
you have to shake it. That's what
Yeah, you can't with his uniform. It doesn't match his uniform.
You don't shake
Better
it, they give you a wall.
He has to wear dress shoes.
You have to shake it like this.
You have to buy his old computer. You have to buy his old computer? It doesn't get a Chromebook. I'm gonna bring my Chromebook to my
So